Good morning and welcome to the 2014 Iowa State University Extension and Outreach Annual Conference. I'm Lynn Broderson, Assistant Vice President for Organizational Development. It's truly my pleasure to welcome you here today and to introduce a very special guest who will officially open our conference, Mr. Simon Estes. An internationally acclaimed bass baritone, Simon Estes is the star of the stage at the world's major opera houses and a regular guest at international festivals. Rising from humble beginnings in Centerville, Iowa, he is an amazing success story. He's the grandson of a slave and the son of a father who faithfully provided for his family with menial jobs, from coal mining to serving as a hotel porter. Throughout his life, Simon Estes has successfully faced each new hurdle and career challenge, culminating in triumph for this extraordinarily gifted performing artist. When asked if he thought we were victims of fate or makers of our own destiny, he answered quickly, makers of our own destiny. Choosing to rise above mere celebrity status, he strives to be a positive role model for the next generation. His compassionate humanitarian efforts elevate him to hero status for the numerous youth who benefit from his vision for merit-based education and opportunity. He has been granted numerous honorary degrees, including one from Iowa State University. Today, I am humbled and pleased to present Iowa State's F. Wendell Miller Distinguished Artist in Residence, Simon Estes.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here, and I'm happy you started a few minutes late because it's very early in the morning to sing. So usually I'm thinking, I wish the people would hurry up and come in today. I thought, take your time, just take your time. Anyhow, I will sing God Bless America for you, and then I will sing America the Beautiful, and then they've asked me to speak for just a few minutes. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you very much. You should have sung it with me. Do all of you know the words to America the Beautiful, the first verse? Could I have the honor to say I sang with all of you? Okay, you sing it with me. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, okay. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you. You all get an A. They just wanted me to speak a little bit. I know you know my history. I've been very, very blessed. And as the lady said, I have sung all around the world, all the major opera houses. I've sung for 6 presidents of the United States. Even though I'm not Catholic, I sang for 2 popes at the Vatican, and Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And I've just been very honored. And I always thank God for the gift that he gave me to sing, and other gifts to love, to care, to share, and to speak. So I'll just talk a few minutes about my project of malaria. I sang in the grand finale concert at the World Cup in Johannesburg, South Africa a few years ago. And before I went out to sing, the moderator mentioned that 1 million children were dying in Africa from malaria, and that every 30 seconds a child dies because of having been bitten by this mosquito. And I thought, and 90%, as I say, of all the malaria deaths in the world are in sub-Saharan Africa. So anyhow, to make a long story short, it was heavy on my heart for a long time. I decided to do something about it, or try anyhow. And I made a CD called Save the Children, Save Their Lives, to try to raise enough money to buy nets. And I had this idea about a year and a half ago, and I signed a contract, an agreement with the United Nations Foundation in Washington, D.C. If I provide the nets, they will make sure the nets are treated, and that they're distributed, and that the people are educated in knowing how to use the nets, and they will follow up on that. So a little over a year ago, I started selling this CD and getting high school students to sell it. And as some of you know, I did a benefit concert in December 15th at the Coliseum here, the Hilton Coliseum. And I had over 1,100 high school choir students sing with me from 53 different high schools. And Joseph Junta conducted the Des Moines Youth Symphony Orchestra, and we raised over $100,000. And I sent all of that money to the United Nations to buy these nets. The nets cost $5. And as I said, the nets have to be treated. And actually, the chemical is being made in, it's called Valent in Osage in Mitchell County. But this is a tragedy that I think should not continue to exist. The World Health Organization says there's a wide range of children that are still dying in Africa alone. Between 660,000 and 971,000 children are still dying. They're all, the ones that die are under the age of 5 because their immune systems have not fully developed, and so they cannot fight off this disease. And so I'm on a big campaign to sell enough CDs and sing all around to raise $5 million to buy 1 million nets, and we want to send all of those to Africa to save these children's lives. I could go on a long time about the project, but I just want to thank the people in Iowa. The governor has supported it. Many of our leading companies have donated money to this cause, and so I'm going to keep working hard this whole year and hope I can raise $5 million to save 1 million children's lives. And I don't want any of the money, of course, for myself, and I don't want any of the praise. I want the praise to go to the students, the people who can contribute to this cause, so that we can help save these children's lives. We eradicated malaria in the United States in 1951, 1952, and there's still pockets around the world where malaria does still exist, but 90% are in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's one of my big goals and missions. And I want to thank all of you folks for what you're doing for this great University of Iowa State University. I'm honored to be here. I've been a professor here for 16 years, and I'm just going to keep staying here as long as you'll keep me. So thank you very much. I wish you a great day, and God bless you all. I'll sing another time for you when it's not so early in the morning, okay? Thank you. Have a great day.
Mr. Estes, on behalf of Iowa State University Extension and Outreach, thank you so much for sharing the gift of your voice with us this morning. Can we show him our appreciation one more time? Just wanted to remind you, too, that the CDs for Mr. Estes Foundation will be on sale at the Learning Fair today from 4:30 until 6. So please, if you are interested in supporting his wonderful efforts to eradicate malaria, please pick up a CD at the Learning Fair. What a wonderful way to start our conference, huh? I've joined a great organization. As a relatively new member of Extension and Outreach, I appreciate how so many of you have welcomed me so warmly over the past few months. Before joining ISU Extension and Outreach, I worked at several universities and community colleges in the Midwest, all very different organizations with very different cultures. I have worked as a public librarian, a university dean, and a community college administrator. The partnerships and collaborations that I took part in strengthened my commitment to providing citizens with access to education. It's exciting now to be part of ISU Extension and Outreach, an organization with access to education at its very core. As we consider our own culture, we face the challenge of moving forward while leveraging the abundant resources and possibilities available in a world that is changing, complicated, and intriguing. Clearly, Extension and Outreach is in the right place at the right time to move increasingly into the spotlight in our state, in our nation, and in our world. Over the next day and a half, we'll be exploring our organizational culture, our use of technology, and project and budget management. Understanding these three things is essential if we truly wish to be committed to excellence and responsive to change. One way we can demonstrate our commitment to excellence is to recognize, honor, and appreciate our colleagues and the work they're doing to make a difference for Iowans. That is why we are beginning our conference with awards. Over the past year, the Awards Committee has streamlined the Iowa State Extension and Outreach Awards and the Iowa State Provost Awards to align with our organization's core values and to make the nomination and review process easier and more inclusive. The three new Iowa State Extension and Outreach Awards recognize faculty and staff who demonstrate excellence in research-based programming, developing powerful partnerships, and truly impacting Iowans. The awards are open to all Iowa State University paid and county paid Extension and Outreach faculty and staff, and anyone can nominate his or her colleagues. Each award includes a monetary component to be used for professional development, the online store, or toward the recipient's program. Individuals receive the equivalent of $100 and teams $500. We present these awards not as a form of flattery, but rather in honest, sincere appreciation for the good work of our colleagues. Deborah Sellers, Associate Dean in the College of Human Sciences and Director of Human Sciences Extension and Outreach, along with the other members of our leadership team, will present the awards. Dr. Sellers?
The Excellence in Research-Based Programming Award recognizes our colleagues who are conducting innovative, research-based educational programs. They document significant impacts and outcomes related to the ISU Extension and Outreach mission and use land-grant research. I am pleased to present this award to Midlife and Beyond, the Whole Picture. Barbara Anderson, Donna Donald, Sherry Ford, Ruth Freeman, Jennifer Margret, and Susan Taylor. And I'll have you just come stand right over here. Thank you. Through study circles and action forums, participants identify needs of the aging population in their communities and take action to address those needs. During initial study circles in 11 counties, 231 participants provided pre and post data. Action forums in 7 counties involved more than 142 participants and 22 community work teams. Currently, 1/3 of Iowa counties are enrolled in midlife and beyond. Excuse me. The Powerful Partnership Award recognizes effective contributions to creating and maintaining diverse and meaningful educational partnerships. 3 nominations were received for this award. Sherry Glenn, Assistant Vice President for County Services, and Jay Staker, Director of the Extension Science, Engineering, and Technology Youth Initiative, will present the award to this year's recipient, the Clay County 4-H and Youth Partnership. Bonnie Dolliger, Wade Weber, Anissa Jepson, and Joe Engel. Please come forward. This team's special interest spin programming matched the content expertise and passion of more than 25 new volunteers and corporate partners with 4-H youth programming expertise and best practices. By strategically planning together and securing a diverse base of revenue support, these programs were offered free of charge to more than 200 Clay County youth. Thank you. The Impacting Iowans Award recognizes exceptional economic, environmental, or social impacts in Iowa. 3 nominations were received, and we have 2 winners. John Lawrence, Associate Dean in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, and Director of A&R Extension and Outreach, will present the first award to the Evaluating Your Estate Plan team. Kelvin Leibold, Tim Eggers, Melissa O'Rourke, Ann Johans, and Georgianne Arts. This successful farm management program focuses on Iowa farm families and addresses estate planning and farm succession challenges using research-based publications, case studies, and exercises. Evaluations show that 1/3 of the respondents created a medical directive or power of attorney and had updated or created a will. More than 14,000 educational materials were downloaded in the first year of the program. Thank you all. Tim Borich, Associate Dean in the College of Design and Director of Community and Economic Development Extension and Outreach, will present the next Impacting Iowans Award to Diane Van Weingarten. Diane created a comprehensive process that provides customized business, education, real-world hospitality experiences, and individual assessment for businesses using tourism as an economic vitality tool. More than 500 Iowa businesses have improved their practices, resulting in financial impacts of more than $800,000. Thank you, Diane. During our closing conference session tomorrow, Vice President Kathann Kress will recognize the recipients of 3 extension awards given through the Provost's office. Those awards include the ISU Award for Outstanding Achievement in Extension or Professional Practice, the R.K. Bliss Extension Award, and the Distinguished Service in Extension Award, the highest award bestowed on an Extension professional. We'd also like to acknowledge those colleagues who are receiving recognition for years of service. Their names are listed in the annual conference program. Would those with 5 years of service please stand? 10 years of service. 15 years of service. 20 years of service. 25 years of service. 30 years of service. 35 years of service. And finally, 40 years of service. Also, the 25, 30, 35, and 40-year people should be sure to attend the closing session tomorrow. Kath Ann has something planned for you as well. Let's show our appreciation with a round of applause for all of our award recipients and length of service recipients. And now, Julie Halas has a message for us from Organizational Advancement.
Well, good morning, everyone. Hey, they're awake out there. I am here to talk to you about the Learning Fair. How many of you were here 2 years ago and went to that Learning Fair? Show of hands. Okay, we've got more fun planned. The Learning Fair is going to occur tonight from 4:30 to 6 o'clock, and I'm kind of seeing something circulate out there. Natasha, is there something floating around in the crowd? Well, my goodness. We've got all sorts of surprises today. If you looked at your packets, there were some things that came with your packets. This little thing right here, if you go around the Learning Fair, you'll be able to write the county milestones on it, and then you can turn it in later for a surprise. We've got another little piece of paper. Looks like this. Kind of looks like a present. You know, this conference is all about the love. It is. I'd do a group hug, but it's a little early in the morning. So what I'd like you to do on this at the Learning Conference is to write something you appreciate about Extension and put it in a box that we'll have there with a little slot. And the box, oddly enough, kind of looks like this. What, for me? For me? I better open this. Hold on. This is how we do it on TV. Okay, so. I think I have it open now. This is an iPad. How many of you have seen an iPad before? So this is what you'll be, once you get all those things filled out on your card that I just showed you, you put it in a little box, and that registers you for a chance to win this iPad right here. So, now, how many of you have seen this guy before? David Seelstad. And this was actually taken at the that he received his iPad 2 years ago. I know, it's exciting, isn't it? Okay, so what David and I would like you to know is that you also have something else in your packet. A drink ticket, yes! This is something else that you can use at the Learning Fair today. If you're not going to use your drink ticket, give it to somebody who will use it. they're already prepaid for. So really the most important thing is to enjoy your day, to attend the learning fair tonight, and to really spend time with one another and really have a good time and enjoy learning things. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Julie. We appreciate the fun factor our organizational advancement team infuses into the conference. And throughout the conference, I encourage you to show your appreciation for your extension and outreach colleagues. Tell them face to face something you appreciate about the work they do or something you learned from their example. In your conference packet, you'll find a card that looks like a gift box tag. Use the card and write a note to a colleague. Show your appreciation for the work he or she does. Then place the note in the appreciation gift box that will be available at various times during the conference. Want to write more than one note? Extra cards will be available at the learning fair. Or just use a piece of paper. It's the thought that counts. We'll share these gifts of appreciation during Extension and Outreach Week, March 23rd through March 29th. In some organizations, an annual conference is a time to look back and review the previous year. But an annual conference also can be a good time to move forward and to plan ahead. It's not surprising that an annual conference offers these two opposite directions, looking back and moving forward. It's a once-a-year opportunity at a threshold, and we have the power to determine which way we want to go. Some thresholds feature a Janus head, a two-headed sculpture. Janus was the Roman god of new beginnings. That's why our calendar year begins with a month called January. Janus was the guardian of the doorway, watching over exits and entrances. His temple door was closed in times of peace, but open in times of war and chaos. The door, of course, was open most of the time, since chaos is part of our human condition. As we enter our new year in Extension and Outreach, we indeed are at a threshold. We can close ourselves off from the world around us, or we can swing the door wide open. We can do what we've always done and hope for the best, or we can step over the threshold to determine what we might need to do differently. We can choose to examine our culture and to face the changes that are all around us as we consider Iowa's shifting workforce and demographics. Most Iowa youth will be living in 8 or 10 metro counties of our state by 2040, while outlying in rural areas will see increases in their aging populations. What challenges do these pose for us in terms of what we do? It's a good question to ponder while you're here. Researchers say contemporary organizational culture includes what is valued in the organization. It includes the dominant leadership style, the special language and symbols we use, the procedures and routines that we follow, and the way we define success. Culture is made up of all those things that distinguish one organization from another. Organizational culture includes the assumptions we make, the values and expectations that we share, and our collective histories and definitions. Our organizational culture can hold us back, or it can move us forward. It's up to us. How might we shape the culture of extension and outreach to meet the challenges of educational leadership, as well as economic and community development for Iowa's future? Our keynote speaker has some insights to share with us as we face this new beginning. Deborah T. Davis is a professor and director of Extension Organization Development and Evaluation at the Louisiana State University Agricultural Center. With organizational culture, Dr. Davis says, everything, people, expectations, leadership, experiences, attitudes, beliefs, and actions must align to produce the results and create the culture that we want. She will help us explore our options in her message, Creating the Perfect Storm, Developing the Culture ISU Extension and Outreach Desires. I am very pleased to introduce to you Deborah Davis. Good morning. Thank you so much. Good. I'm going to get this out of the way here.
Well, good morning. I am delighted to be here with you, and I'm so glad you had someone with some musical talent open your session this morning. I've been in some sessions with Nancy Franz where she opens with a song. Not happening. So I was really glad your conference committee had the foresight to cover that for me. And I also bring you greetings from South Louisiana. As we were talking about getting ready to come up here for this conference, I was getting a little nervous because every time I talked to Nancy, she was saying things like 2 below 0, 20 below 0, 17 below 0, and I'm like, I don't even have enough clothes in my closet if I put on everything I own to be in that kind of a climate. So I was really glad when I stepped off the plane yesterday and the temperature here in Des Moines was the same as I left in South Louisiana. Now, I understand it's going to change, and did overnight, but it did calm my climate fears a little bit when I got here, so that was kind of nice. I also have another confession to make to you this morning. When I was invited to speak at this conference, Nancy Franz, who is a very much respected colleague of mine in the organization development world, and my friend, said I was an expert in organization development and culture. And I said, okay. I was humbled when she said that. But you see, I don't see myself as an expert in that area. I do see myself as someone who has a little bit experience in that area, and you'll learn a little bit about me and why I think that, but I certainly do not have all the answers. Organizations are complicated, very, very complicated. But if I can help you today to walk out of here with more questions in your mind about the direction you want to go and how to get there, then I will have been successful. My goal here today is not to give you all the answers about organizations and change. My goal here today, and with the leadership team later and the breakout session I'll be doing later after that, is to help you to think more about the questions you would have and the solutions that would work here for you. Because what works in Louisiana may not work here, most likely will not work here. So we're going to try a little exercise to start off with. First thing this morning, see how awake you are. So I know this is dangerous in a group this size, but what the heck, we're going to bail off and try it anyway. So I want you to look at these 5 pictures for just a minute. Just kind of let them resonate with you. And I want you to think about what's going on right now in your professional life here in Iowa State Extension and Outreach. Which of these pictures most resonates with you and why? Now here's the tricky part. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to share that with somebody sitting next to you. Okay? So get it in your brain. Which picture, which one resonates with you the best? All right. Share with your neighbor for just a minute. Oh my goodness, that's enough. That's enough. Wow, the buzz. Did you hear it? It was like really fast and really intense. And I wish I could have heard what all of you were saying. Chances are you're kind of all over the board. Did the person in the next door to you identify the same picture? No, some did, some didn't. Chances are you're in very different places, or you may be in different places. Some are sinking in snowdrifts of demands on their time. Some are waiting for the next lightning bolt to strike. Some are waiting for the storm that is brewing on the horizon and wondering what that's going to bring with it. Some may be feeling like they're covered by the blanket of work on their plates. Just keeps getting piled higher and deeper and deeper and deeper. Some of you might feel like those folks in the middle picture that are just having a ball. Just having a good time, everything's good, everybody's happy, we're all singing Kumbaya, and everything's rolling along great. One of the things that might have been interesting was to see how many of you are in that spot. How many of you are in that place professionally? Maybe some of you had a hard time deciding because you could see yourself in several of these different places. For some, depending on the minute of the day, depending on the day of the week, depending on the week of the month, depending on the month of the year, but right now in this time. Personally, I feel like most of my life, most of my professional life, has been spent in some kind of storm or another. Would you agree? Would you agree? Some kind of storm or another. There were good storms, yeah, storms can be good. And there were some really bad storms. But almost always there was a storm of some type on the horizon. So what does all this have to do with anything? And what makes me qualified to stand up here and talk to you? Well, the truth of the matter is I'm like many of you in this room. My story might be a little bit different, and the way I got to this point in my professional career might be a little bit different. But ultimately, we are all professionals that work for the same system and the same organization. I'm part of the LSU Ag Center Extension and Research System, and I've been there for 34 years. And with working in organizations comes people. And with people and organizations together come opportunities, challenges, and changes. Always changes, right? Always changes. Just when you get a little bit comfortable with the way things are, what happens? Change. Something changes. Somebody changes. Some things change. Well, I began my extension career as a part-time extension secretary in a parish office. Now here you call those counties, okay? I had no desire when I graduated from high school to go to college. My lifelong dream was to get married, have babies, and be a secretary. That's what I wanted to do with my life. Now understand, I'm not saying there is a thing wrong with having that dream. Dreams are very important. But for me, my dreams changed along the way, and yours may have too. I was visiting with a couple of people before the session started today about how they had started down one professional path and ended up going down another professional path. And life just does that for us. But after I worked in the extension office for about 2 years as a part-time secretary, and I got an opportunity to volunteer at various extension events, I decided I wanted to go to college and get a degree so that I could be the 4-H agent. See, as a part-time secretary, I had fun volunteering at things like 4-H camp, working at fairs, judging contests, all the usual 4-H-y kinds of things. And I wanted to do it full-time and get paid for it, because as a part-time secretary, I felt like I was volunteering and doing the work, but not really getting paid for what I was doing. So, enroll in college I did. By that time, I had already fulfilled part of my dream. I had worked as a part-time secretary, I had gotten married, and I had one child. So I I enrolled at LSU in what at that time was called the old home economics department and majored in child development and family development. And then when I finished with my BS, I took my first job as a 4-H agent in a parish county just outside of the capital, Baton Rouge. And I immediately started working on my master's degree in family development. After I got my master's, and I worked 10 years, had been working 10 years as a 4-H agent, and I had my second child, I got the opportunity to move to the state office on an energy grant. Now, back in the day, energy grants were big, and we had our share in Louisiana. My supervisor there, when I moved to the state office, was a phenomenal leader. And after I had been there about 6 months, he called me in his office one day, and he said, "You need to work on a PhD. You have potential." Now, you got to remember, this is the girl that graduated from high school and wanted to be a part-time secretary, get married, and had babies. Okay? She's been a part-time secretary, she's had some children, 2 children, a boy and a girl, she's now got a BS, she's got a master's, and this guy's telling her she can go and get a PhD. Not a whole lot of confidence here to be able to do that, but he supported me and encouraged me. He planted that seed. The idea of getting a PhD was never even in my thought processes. So fast forward a few years, and I completed that degree, and then I got the opportunity to, and so that degree was in adult and extension education. The PhD was in adult and extension education. So after a few years, I completed that degree, served as a state program leader in, get this department, ag engineering, environmental programs, and entomology. Ag engineering, environmental programs, and entomology, all in one department. I'm the only woman in the group, right? And I'm the department head. I'm working with ag engineers, entomologists, and water quality specialists. It was tough. It was a little tough. Now, no stereotypes here. The stereotypes don't apply. But I'm just saying that as a woman in an organization where I was basically very much the minority in that unit, being the only one, it had its degree of challenges, and there was a certain kind of culture that I walked into that had some opportunities for me to do things a little bit different. So I'm not really going to go into that too much, because that can be that could go on and on. But ultimately, after I served in that role for about 8 years, I landed in the LSU Ag Center's Organization Development and Evaluation Unit, and got the opportunity to have the job where I can use my passion for helping organizations succeed. I was so excited to be in that job, but as I thought back over the previous jobs I had held, heck, I was excited to be in all of those jobs. I remember when I became a part-time secretary, I was excited. That was a great job. I remembered when I got an opportunity to volunteer at 4-H camp. That was wonderful. We had a ball. And then the 4-H agent job was fun. And then the program leader job was fun. So every job I have fallen into, I have had the opportunity to use whatever was my passion of the moment. And I encourage you that if you're not in a job that allows you to use your real passion, either develop the passion or find another job. Because so many of us languish in positions where we're not happy, where we're in those snowstorms and we're drowning in work and we just can't adjust. So if you have the opportunity if you can see that opportunity in front of you, take it. You will not regret it. Throughout my 34-year journey in Extension, I've been in many types of organizational cultures. Same organization. My entire tenure, the entire 34 years, has been at the LSU Ag Center. Same organization, different culture. Many, many types of storms. Quite honestly, I can't remember when we were not reorganizing, when the budget wasn't being cut, when there were enough people to do the work, when the competition for programs was not steep. I don't remember that. When all of my volunteers were happy, I don't remember that. When program direction was not changing, or when there wasn't a new initiative on the horizon, or when there was enough time in the day to get it all done. Just didn't happen. So what then made the cultures so different at different times in my career? Now you'll appreciate this. As I began to think about that question for myself and prepping for this time with you this week, I found myself sitting in the midst of what you folks might call snow flurries. But in South Louisiana, we called it a full-blown snowstorm. You see, we don't get many snowstorms in our part of the country. That particular day, though, we had about a ½ inch of snow. Just enough to barely pepper the ground. The green grass is still showing through the snow. But nonetheless, it was enough to throw our entire region into a frenzy. Frenzy! Roads and bridges iced over, schools shut down, the university got an unexpected 3-day holiday. Because in Louisiana, we have a lot of raised bridges. We're not prepared for that kind of weather. We get a little bit of ice on the road and people go berserk because they don't know how to drive in it. And so everything shuts down. We do in Louisiana get a lot of rain. We get a lot of rain. So I know about rainstorms, and we know how to deal with rain. 2 inches of rain in 1 hour? No problem. We got that. So as I sat meditating in the storm and thought about the varying cultures I've worked in through the years, the similarity struck me hard. As the cultures within which I worked changed, there were different people, different leaders, different experiences, and I was in a different place in my professional journey. In many instances, the differences were due to the organization's readiness to deal with the changes on the horizon and our adaptability to them. We'll get back to that in just a minute. You did so well on that first exercise. Let's try another one. I want each one of you to think about one word or phrase that you would use to describe your current perception of the culture here in ISU-EO. Now don't overthink this, okay? You each came to this session with some preconceived ideas about culture. You had some excellent asynchronous conference materials on culture that I hope you took the opportunity to look at. If you didn't, I didn't really spend much time on the others, but I did look at the organizational culture ones. If you didn't look at those, I encourage you to go back after the conference and take a look at them. Really some good ideas. So you each came into this conference today with some preconceived ideas about the culture. You may not have thought about them in cultural terms, but believe me, you do have ideas and perceptions about the culture. So think of it this way. What word or phrase would you use to describe to somebody new about the way we do things around here? Think about that a minute. What's the word or phrase? Now, when I count to 3, I want you to say that word or phrase out loud. And I want you to listen for the things that the people around you say. Okay? You got your word or phrase in your brain? Be honest. I can't hear them all, and Lynn's way down here, so she probably can't hear all of them anyway. It'll be a buzz. So just yell them out. 1, 2, 3. I didn't hear a word of them. I couldn't understand a one of them. But that's okay. Because what I want to know is, did the person next to you say the same thing you said? Chances are they did not. Chances are they did not. So let's explore the possible reasons why they may think something different. The culture in an organization is made up of many things, as Lynn alluded to earlier. Values, visions, norms, the languages, the language you use, different systems you have in place in the organization, your beliefs, your habits, all of those contribute. They all come together much like the elements of a storm, moisture, wind currents, and temperature, to influence the way people think, perceive, and the way they interact with other people and clients and groups. In the exercise that we just did, one of the reasons you may have described the culture differently than the person sitting next to you is that because your perceptions of the culture have been influenced by the experiences you individually have had. Think about that. Your perception of the culture is influenced by the experiences each of you individually has. Doesn't matter what level of the organization you're at. Doesn't matter if you're in a county or if you're at the state level. Doesn't matter if you're on the administrative team or not. Doesn't matter if you're in 4-H, A&R, CED, human sciences. Doesn't matter. Your perceptions are the product of the experiences that you individually have had. So think back when you first came to work on your job. Was there someone who said to you, "This is the way we do it around here"? Was there somebody who told you that? It may have been a coworker. It might have been your boss. It might have been a volunteer. It might have been a county council member. How much stock did you place in that as a newbie? Chances are a pretty good bit, because you were the new kid on the block and they knew it all. So the perceptions of the people who were before you or that you came in contact in your early days really did help to form your perception that you have today of the culture. For me, when my supervisor encouraged me to work on a PhD, that said to me that the organization valued employee development. That was important to the organization. And when my county director asked me when I was going to meet with my advisory council and asked if he could attend, that said to me that he was actually interested in what I was doing and that the organization valued my being responsive to client needs. And as you and I were exposed to these experiences and people, that perception, my perception of the organization's culture was further molded to create what it is today. I hope some of you recognize this model. My favorite go-to group on personal and organizational accountability is Partners in Leadership. Their firm is located in Temecula, California, and they have authored such books as The Oz Principle, Journey to the Emerald City, How Did That Happen, and Change the Culture, Change the Game. How many of you have read The Oz Principle? Okay, we got a few. I happen to know for a fact there are a few copies of that book floating around in the organization. So if you have not read it, I encourage you to get your hands on a copy and take a look. They use a model when talking about culture that I really like. It's very simple. I am a very simple person. I like to explain things in very simple terms. But it makes me think every time I look at it about accountability and organizational culture in a different way. In their model, we are reminded that the culture we create in our organizations is very much based on the experiences we have. So you'll see that at the bottom of the results pyramid. And those experiences produce in each of us a different set of beliefs. Okay? So because something happens and we experience it, we get a belief from that. And once we get that belief causes us to behave or act a certain way. And when we collectively, as an organization, act a certain way, we achieve some kind of result. Now, that result can be positive, or that result can be negative. And that's going to depend a lot on the experiences, beliefs, and actions that lead up to that result. Very simple. Very, very simple model. So let me share a few examples that I have lived, and let me see if you can relate to any of these. So my team leader says he wants ideas to get people in the community to participate in extension-sponsored events because participation's been kind of low. So in a team meeting, he asks us to share our ideas. When it's my turn, the leader listens intensely, jots down some notes, asks some clarifying questions before moving on to the next person to get their ideas. How do you think that makes me feel? What do you think? How do you think that makes me feel? Valued. Valued. I'm a pretty happy camper, right? The boss actually listened to what I had to say and actually seemed interested. Interested enough to take notes, interested enough to ask questions, to clarify, interested enough to give me time to voice my ideas. That's pretty empowering to me as a team member. That tells me that my leader is interested in what I have to say and wants me engaged in the problem-solving process. What action am I likely to take in the future because I believe that my opinion is valued? I'm likely to think even harder next time about a problem, right? Okay, so here's another example. Our organization is reorganizing yet again, and more decisions are being pushed down to lower levels in the organization. A lot of decentralization of leadership going on in Louisiana right now. Mid-managers are resistant to making decisions without input and validation from the higher-ups, but some of us finally succumb to doing it. I'm in that group, right? So I finally give in and I make a decision. My very first, what I would call, big decision without the boss's direction. Believe me, it was not made at all without sleepless nights, long walks, and lots of thought. That decision garnered me a 7 a.m. wake-up call one morning from my boss, which began with, and I quote, "What were you thinking when you..." The end of the question doesn't really matter. When I heard his tone, and when I heard the first few words of that phrase, my first thought was, wrong decision. Wrong decision. I didn't make the decision that he wanted me to make or expected me to make. Again, how do you think that made me feel? What do you think it made me believe? And what actions am I likely to take in the future? I can tell you what the action was. For a very long time, I was very hesitant and did not trust myself to make decisions that I should have been able to make at my level. But that was based on my experience that I had had in this particular situation. And here's one more. I've been contracted to work with an organization on a project. Part of the process includes me collecting data on feelings, attitudes, and opinions of the group regarding a new initiative they're going to be rolling out in the organization in the next 6 months. That data collection process yields a fairly small response rate. Afterwards, I get an opportunity to visit with some of the people who did not participate in the process, and I ask them why not. What was it that kept them from participating? And I remember it clearly when this one girl said to me distinctly, "We've done this in the past. I gave my opinion and I was chastised for what I said. Not doing that again." So that experience that one person had had about voicing their opinion and the reaction of someone else in the group had led them to establish the belief that their input was not important, or even though it was being asked for, it wasn't really expected. So maybe you can relate to some of those examples. Maybe you have others of your own that you can think about where you've had experiences that have led you to the cultural belief that you currently have. In these examples, though, think about how things might have been different with a different experience. If I had gone into that meeting with my ideas and the team leader had just kind of glossed over me and said, yeah, that's good, go on, had not really taken a real keen interest, my reaction to that situation would have been totally different. I would have been in a place where I was going out and saying, I'm not problem solving anymore. They don't really want my input. I'm not doing it. But because I had a positive experience there, my behavior in the future continued to be positive. If my decision had been respected when I made that big my first high-level decision, I would be more inclined to continue to make those kinds of decisions in the future. You see, here's where it gets really, really dangerous. When the experiences you have in an organization are not aligned with the results that the organization wants to achieve ultimately, then the effects on the culture can be quite negative. Quite negative. Chaos typically ensues when you have this kind of model. So in this model, people are being provided with experiences that don't produce the beliefs you want them to have, that don't lead to the actions that you want them to take, and the result is typically sheer chaos. Sheer chaos. So alignment of these things is very, very critical. I'm reminded here of two key thoughts I had when I was first introduced to this logic model. That's my other life, evaluation and accountability. I was first introduced to this Oz principle results model. My first thought was, what a huge role I play as a leader or a supervisor in setting up the right experiences for my people. If I want creativity, do I encourage and reward creativity? If not, then why would my team members want to be creative? Nothing in it for them. If I want people to make decisions on their own, am I willing to take the risk that their decision would be different from my own? Risk is a big factor here. And if we are striving to develop a culture of accountability in ISUEO, we have to be willing to take some risks. We have to be willing to take the risk that sometimes our efforts are going to fail. But it's okay to fail if we learn from those failures. That's in a true culture of accountability. Secondly, and probably most importantly, I thought about what role do I have as an individual member of this organization in creating this culture. Experiences happen to me, right? I have the experiences. They are mine. But my reaction to each and every experience I have is also controlled by me. My attitude is controlled by me. In the Oz principle, Connor, Smith, and Hickman introduced their central accountability model. This model has become my mantra, and it introduces the idea of above the line and below the line accountability. So let's take a look at it. In this model, excuse me just a minute, South Louisiana sinuses followed me up here. In this model, below the line, you'll see what Connor, Smith, and Hickman called the blame game. When people operate below the line, they are using strategies such as, well, I'm just going to wait and see what everybody else does, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do. Or you cover your tail with lots and lots and lots of excuses for the reason that you didn't do something. You do a lot of finger pointing. Not they did that. Wasn't my fault. She didn't. Wasn't my fault. The 4-H agent didn't. Wasn't my fault. The county council didn't. Wasn't my fault. The director did. Wasn't my fault. Lots of that. You ever do any of that? We've all been there, right? You ignore or deny that there's even a problem. Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's fine. How are you today? Everything's fine. How's everything going? Oh, everything's fine. Meanwhile, your team is falling apart behind you. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Live in a golden world, right? It's not my job. It's somebody else's job. Same kind of philosophy as the finger pointing thing. And this is the one that, we all have our little pet peeves. This is the one that drives me crazy. It's the confusion, tell me what to do one, where people who have been in an I'm picking on you, 40 years, right? Phenomenal, amazing. People who have been in the organization 40 years still don't know how to do a plan of work. People who've been in an organization for 30 years don't know how to write an impact report. People who've been in an organization for 20 years don't know how to conduct an advisory committee meeting. How can you do that? I mean, how does that happen? How do we let that happen in the organization? So if you're confused and you don't know what to do, then in an accountable culture, it's your responsibility to go out and find out what to do. Sorry, I didn't mean to get on my soapbox. I'm sorry. My team would say, oh yeah, we knew that was coming. So below the line, people are acting like victims in their culture. Everything's woe is me, it's all happening to me, oh, it's poor me, poor me, poor me. But there is an alternative. You can move above the line. And Connor, Smith, and Hickman use a 4-step process for that. They call it see it, own it, solve it, do it, which is equivalent to take responsibility, acknowledge you have a problem, take responsibility for the problem, determine what you could do differently, and then do something about it. When you do that, when you operate in that above the line category, you can begin to take the experiences that happen to you and explore ways that you may have done something different to have a different experience, as well as how you might have responded differently to that experience. I know this is really not as much fun as blaming somebody else, right? Much easier to blame somebody else. Much, much easier to blame somebody else. it's much more difficult for me to take responsibility for whatever the problem is and to explore what I would have done differently or could have done differently to get a different result. As you move into this above-the-line thinking, you will become more accountable, personally and organizationally. The question I pose to you now about this, and if you're interested in doing a little bit more exploring about your own personal accountability, that's what we'll be doing in the breakout session that I'm doing later this afternoon and will be repeated in the morning, I believe. The question I pose to you now is, where do you spend most of your time? Are you spending most of your time below the line or above the line? Your answer to that question could have a huge impact excuse me, on the culture in your organization. If the majority of your team is operating below the line, you could be supporting a culture where accountability is not valued. So if you have a lot of complainers and finger pointers and blamers on your team and you're letting that happen, then you could be supporting a culture where accountability is not valued. And that's a sure sign of declining culture. However, if you find that most of your time is being spent above the line, you are on your way to creating a culture where success is likely. Hopefully you'll notice when I asked those previous two questions, that I asked where you spend most of your time. It is human nature for us to fall below the line periodically. We are all going to blame somebody else, point the finger, make an excuse on occasion. And that's okay. But it's not healthy for an organization if you spend most of your time there. Having accountable colleagues and leaders who can reach down below the line and pull us up above the line periodically is very, very critical. My former extension director was really into this Oz principle accountability stuff, and he supported me as I got more and more excited about it. And go into team meetings, and we had been working on this for months now, and every once in a while I would make some little negative comment. We all do it, right? And Dr. Carell, my extension director, would say, he'd stop, he'd lean on the table, and he'd look at me, and he'd say, "Deborah, that was a below-the-line comment." But one of the things I loved about him was I could look at him and I could say, "Paul, that was a below-the-line comment." And he was good with that, because we had worked hard to establish a culture of accountability in the organization, and part of that means that we've got to be able to have that comfortable exchange of language, we've got to have that common terminology, and we've got to really provide those experiences where I'm comfortable when Paul says, "That's below the line." Or we would be in a group and all of us would be kind of yeah, and somebody in the group would say after a few minutes, "Okay, we've spent enough time below the line with this topic, now let's move above the line. Let's see what we can do to fix this situation. What did we do to get here? What is the real problem? We own this problem. What are the possible solutions, and what are we going to do to move forward?" So in an accountable culture, we do that with one another. We have that free exchange of that. Rogers, Connor, Smith, and Tim Smith of Partners in Leadership contend that accountability is the most effective type of culture, because when you have an accountable culture, everything else is going to fall into place a lot more easily. In a truly accountable culture, every person, every one of you in this room, has a role in achieving the results that the organization desires. Notice that I didn't say it was totally the responsibility of the leaders in the organization to achieve the results or dictate the future. It is a shared responsibility, and it belongs to everyone. Each and every person in this room has a role. One premise that the Oz principle supports is this, and the first couple of times I heard this, it really kind of rattled me and I had a problem with it. They say, I cannot personally be successful if my entire organization is not successful. Think about that for a minute. That is powerful. I personally cannot be successful if my entire organization is not successful. To me, that's a pretty sobering thought. So I wanted to share a few data slides with you from the survey that we conducted prior to this conference. We sent out a link to a survey to ask about your perceptions regarding the organization's accountability. The first 3 slides are just to give you a feel for who responded, so we'll flip through those pretty quick. And then, so let's see what we had. We had about 271 responses to this anonymous survey, and we had about 175 of those people were ISU paid employees, and then 93 county employees and 3 others. And then this slide, I don't know if you can see that from where you are, but I did a region breakdown just so you could see how they were distributed across the state, just to give you some idea. And those are raw numbers at the end of the bars. And then we asked what your assigned areas were, and we had 260 people who responded to that. And you'll see we had the largest response from A&R, and you can see how the other units kind of play out. But here's what I really wanted to get to with this. We had a series of 10 statements, and we asked you, did you agree or disagree with these statements? And so these are and they're in rank order. So these are the statements that people most agree with. So you can take a look at those. We're talking here about adjusting program direction. We're talking about extension leaders modeling accountability. We're talking here about employees understanding and defining accountability in proactive and active positive terms. And then every employee at every level is expected to be accountable. And then here's the next set, the next 3. So you're pretty confident or feel pretty much that your leaders are creating experiences to support the beliefs that produce the actions which lead to the desired results. And you're beginning to create and maintain a culture of accountability. Here are the 3 that people least agree with that I want you to think about just a little bit. People who responded to this survey do not feel like they are rewarded for being personally accountable and coaching others. So in our leadership team meeting right after this, we're going to be talking about what are some of the experiences possibly that we are setting up that are making people feel this way. Because it may be reality, it may not be reality, but as you and I both know, my perception is reality to me. So if this many people don't agree with this statement, we need to explore why. The second one revolves around whether or not the organization has clearly defined set of cultural beliefs on accountability. And then the bottom one, which to me is really, really a key here, is that if we don't have a clear understanding of what the results are that the organization is trying to achieve, how are we going to help our employees get there? Key. So we'll explore these some more. So as I think about how organizational cultures and storms are different, I'm reminded that some storms are noisy and some storms are very quiet. Would you agree? Although I learned this week about snow thunder, I thought snow was quiet, but what do I know? So it is with cultures. Some are quiet cultures and some are noisy cultures. One might be inclined to think that in cultures where things are quiet, that everything is running like a well-oiled machine. Experiences, beliefs, and actions are perfectly aligned to create the results we want. The cultures I really worry about, though, are the ones that on the surface appear to be really quiet, but below the surface there are quiet rumblings. There's no accountability, employees are unhappy, apathy is rampant, productivity is down, Teams are not functioning. There's a quiet disregard for policies and procedures. Everyone wants the boss to decide. Nobody else wants to make a decision. You know the signs. These all indicate that a full-blown storm may be brewing, and it's not the good kind. So, what does a healthy culture look like? Well, a healthy culture is one in which you have these elements. There is a shared vision. There is accountability at every level of the organization. It's one in which there is strong leadership with a clear sense of direction and purpose. There is trust among employees and leaders. There is a respect for diversity in programs, in people, in ideas, in locations. There is really clear communication about everything that's going on in the organization. Employees are engaged in a healthy culture. So they are involved in every step of the way. There's pride and enthusiasm in the work you do. There are opportunities for everybody to succeed. There's adaptability. We change to meet the needs. And there's an investment in learning, training, and employee knowledge. The question for you today to ponder is this: are these things, all of these things in the healthy culture, lining up in ISU-EO to create the culture you want to have in your organization? What needs to change? What needs to change? What are you going to do about that? And how can you change the currents? As you go about the rest of the week, I encourage you to have some meaningful dialogue about these things in all of your sessions. One thing is sure: the answer lies somewhere above the line, not below the line. Frances Hesselbein, President and CEO of the Frances Hesselbein Leadership Institute and former CEO of Girl Scouts, says this: culture does not change because we desire to change it. Culture changes when the organization is transformed. The culture reflects the realities of people working together every day. Organizational transformation takes time, but it can't happen without a beginning. And one thing is for certain: if we don't manage the culture will manage us. John Lilly, noted American scientist, said, "Our only security is our ability to change." You have the ability to change. Will you do it? And I'll leave you with this final thought. Storms can be ugly and cause lots of damage. Loss of life, loss of power, damage to property, flooding. Storms can also be beautiful. One of my favorite things to do is sit in my sunroom on a warm summer night watching the lightning storms off in the distance. The sky is bright with flashes of light which promise that the rain is not far away. What kind of storm are you going to create at ISU-EO? Thank you.